Right, Trotty has landed the intro on me. So welcome back to the Dope Stroke Show podcast, mate. We're one down, man down. So Daryl was going to join us, but he's stuck in meetings. He's currently in Dubai. I think he flew there this morning, so he had all intentions of being on here, but he's let us down last minute. So it's just me and you, mate. And we're going to cover some topics. We're going to cover a little bit of PGA Show next week. Talk a little bit about Anthony Kim. We've got Brooks Koepka. We've got a few questions that have come in. But before that, mate, how are you?
All good. I mean, he's not here, so it's going to be absolutely seamless, isn't it? Just given. It's a given, mate.
Smooth. It'll be smooth.
I'm good.
We might put Lauren in for a little bit.
Yeah, exactly. I've had a busy start to the year already. Kicked off with a lot of stuff going on in work and family stuff, which is all good. But I'm here for it. I actually makes me laugh. I want to kick off with that AK and Live stuff. The whole social media landscape, which I know that we're both in there as a presence, but it all just makes me laugh. I mean, is it really a story that he's re-qualified himself back into the Live? Is there anyone else in that field that you even knew? And then it goes back to the fact that just global top-level professional golf, which I think will segue nicely into some of the questions we had in, just how hard it is to be in it at that level. And the one piece or the soundbite I did take is he parred his last hole that he played. He hit it almost in a trap and was stood in the trap ball outside the trap. Then he hits it almost in a bunker, ball in the bunker, outside the bunker. Then he hits it on the green 20 feet. And then he starts to talk about, listen, it was just going into subconscious mode to make it. I think if you get a player like that can really hit subconscious mode to make it, that was probably the most telling thing that he said for me. And then I don't know if you saw, and I want to get your take on this, on social media again, he hit off at Brandel Chambly about his not knowing about professional golf and stuff, which, I don't know, guy played the Masters, mate. Seems a bit harsh. But there's a lot for you to unpack there. And, of course, the dog's here.
What's the dog's views on it? No, I saw it. I mean, I don't watch a lot of Live, and especially don't watch these qualified events. And in all fairness, had AK not been playing in it, I wouldn't have even known that it was on. So, you know, he's a bit of
so let's start there though, mate. Like, that's the thing. Like, at what point now, where do you so you've just said, and I'm going to dissect that totally, I don't really watch, but I'm in the same boat, pal. And it's like, literally, AK is the only reason that you and I know this event even happened. Like, as golf guys, are we cool with this? Is this cool? I mean, I don't know.
I mean, I think from his point of view, because he put something out on socials about, I can't remember exactly what his quote was, but it was something like, "I've earned my spot now, so you lot can stop talking shit," something like that. And I want to dive into that a little bit more. But for me, this was a story more about him, because even that little quote suggests that he's been playing with a little bit of a kind of subconscious, do I really deserve to be here? There's a lot of people talking about me. I'm here on an invite. I'm here because of the story that I was, because I went MIA for God knows how long. So for him, it's a good thing, right? Because he's going to go and play golf now knowing that he's earned that spot. So I think it's good for him. But like you were saying, there was no one in that tournament that I'd heard of. There's no one that you'd heard of. But it's good for him. I think it's good for Liv because it's a storyline. But the quote that he put on social, which was something like that about everyone can shut up now because I earned the spot, that shows me that he's a guy who doesn't have huge amount of corporate sponsors. He doesn't have any, people who are watching what he does. You wouldn't get that kind of quote from a Scheffler or a McIlroy. So I quite like him because he's a bit like a throwaway. He does his own thing. He's a bit of a rogue. He says what he wants. And I like that. I like seeing a bit of personality from someone. I like someone to give it back to the fans who've maybe given him stick for the last couple of years. And you know what? You look back at when he was a proper baller, mate. Like Ryder Cup.
Ridiculous.
There's no reason why he can't maybe not get back to that level. He can't just keep progressing. He'll play now with a little bit of confidence. He's earned his spot. He might get a few better results. It might push him towards a top 5, a top 10. Like, there's no reason why in a few years' time he couldn't be contending for a victory on the Live Tour. I think it's good for him, and I like watching him.
So he said he says, "Watch out, I'm going to win." He said that in an interview. Yeah, but it not going to be controversial. Not going to name players that I'm thinking of here. I'm just going to leave this open. Do you think it's possible to get back and win when you've got the amount of commitments he's got with a family, and he has to reframe what golf is? I'm not saying you can't be a good golfer with a family, but what I'm saying is there needs to be a different reason to win. And maybe some of the stuff that I'm hearing you talk about is that chip on the shoulder that caused him to get back. I think he's used that as fuel to get him to this point, for sure. But now he's obviously trying to reframe it that his daughter is the reason that he's doing things. I get it. And it's just interesting to see an elite athlete try and reframe everything that they're doing.
I think he can win. I think the golf that he was back in the day could have easily won on that tour. And I think that, look...
But how do you reframe is what I'm saying. Like, do you think reframing is what you have to do as a player?
I think for him, because he obviously, I don't want to spend too much time on it in this podcast, but he obviously did, whatever you want to call it, go off the rails a little bit and go down a path that maybe he regrets and he shouldn't go down. So has got to reframe it. He's obviously got a family. He has got a daughter. If he can get those lined up and get his priorities right, I think the key thing would be, we know what it's like when you have, a few months off or you stop playing competitive golf. He had a long break from competitive golf. It's going to be a big journey to get back to the top. He needs to find a formula that works for him, whether that's how he practices, whether that's the split between practice, play, family. But if he's got the family driving him, which he sounds like he has, he's starting to play a little better golf. He's probably starting to get some of the feels back that he maybe had before. He's starting to hit some shots that he hit before. And I think with golf, it's like this snowball effect. If he can just keep going down that route and keep starting to, play better under the gun, start to hit the shots he used to hit, practice more efficiently, have that time away with his family, I think he can get back. I really do. I don't think he's going to get back to being, contending in majors. But, like if you think the next 2 to 3 years, could he put 3 or 4 rounds together and be at the top of the leaderboard? Absolutely.
So the putt he made was about 19 feet down the hill off the right, dribbler, that he had to feel it in the hole. And he said in his interview, like, it was subconscious. How do we as golfers find our subconscious to make those putts? I've made them. You've made them when it counts. For a few quid, we've not won majors or qualified for live tours. Like, let's just put all this into perspective. I feel like we've said, like, we don't really know any of the players. They're still freaking good players. You know what I mean? But when it's important to us as individuals, and it's going to segue into the next question, how do we get that? How do we achieve that?
I mean, you can only, if you're doing something, whatever it may be, if you're doing something subconsciously, I think that to get to that state, you have to, at some point before that, have done something very similar. So, I couldn't go and stand on...
What happens if you've never done it before?
Yeah, but it's something similar. Like, there's levels to this thing. So I couldn't go and stand on, the last hole of the Open at St Andrews with a 15-foot putt to win and be like subconscious, because I've not even done anything close. But for him...
But you've hit 15-footers, though.
Yeah, no, but there's a pressure, there's a level to this thing. So, he's played Ryder Cups, he's contended in majors, he's holed, 15, 20-foot putts when the pressure's really been on. So he's got that to fall back on. So he can stand on that green and go, I've done this at the highest level. So I know that I've got the ability. Then he just goes into game mode. Whereas, when you've never done it, if you're doing something for the first time, obviously it's the first time. But if you've done something that's close, then you can go into that sort of frame of mind. But, for example, if you've never shot under your handicap in a stroke play event, I don't think you can go into subconscious mode. You've got to get to that point first. You've got to get a few things under your belt that show you that you can do it. Then you can let yourself get out of your own way and perform. But I think you've got to have some level of kind of history or something that's suggesting that you've done this and you can do that. And that's why, the majority of players, and there's obviously a few different people out there like your Tigers and your Jacks of the world, but you look at most players, they'll win on Europro, they'll win on Challenge Tour, they'll win on DP World Tour, they'll win on PGA Tour, they'll win a big event, they'll win a major. It's a progress, and you have to go through those, because you can't just go,
Tommy Fleetwood.
Yeah, Tommy Fleetwood. You can't just go win a Europro. I'm going to go in a major and subconsciously hit the shots because I know what it's like. I just think you have to go through those levels, and he's kind of going back through those levels. But do you know what? I think that would have been really encouraging for him to have such an important putt and feel like he got out of his own way and just let his golf do the talking. Yeah. That's positive, really positive.
Now, we're going to move on this, but you said you feel it feels like a bit of a throwback, I think you said. You might have said somewhere in there. And it's interesting to watch him with his equipment. His equipment is throwbacky, for sure.
So I haven't even spent too much time looking at it. I wouldn't even know what he's using.
I've not dived in, but it's a set of blades for a bloke who hasn't played for a long time. And I'm guessing, and hopefully someone can correct this, but it looks like a traditional kind of shape driver, which I get it. Like, he's 40 years old. But it's the flat stick. I mean, you don't see many blades anymore. You just don't. They're tough. I mean, I pulled one out the weekend to have a look at it, and it just goes straight back in the bag in the garage. It's like, this thing's just, I don't get it. I don't get, with all the zero talks, and now with, I'm a huge broomstick guy now. I mean, I just think it's so much easier with arm locks and different methods, and left below right, that's been out forever. But like heavy heads and bigger grips, and here's a guy just using a camera, and it's basically a ping answer. And I'm like,
but do you not think that if you were advising him, and he came to you and said, "Hey, look, I need some advice on my game as a whole. Like, obviously, I was this player back in the day. I played Ryder Cups, I contended majors. I was, a bit of a big deal back in the day. I've had God knows how many years off, like 20 years away from the game. I want to come back." Would you not think it's a lot to come back into the game and try and get your game back whilst also trying to change equipment? I sort of feel like I'd be almost saying, look, let's keep some things constant. Let's use the putter you use. Let's use the same sort of irons. Let's get you back to playing your game, and then maybe we can look at that. I don't know, but I'm just thinking, do you really want to come back after 20 years and change the whole equipment and then try and play golf competitively? To me, that feels like it's not a risk, but it's a tough one to manage, that is.
So do you know what it needs? This is it. This is the soundbite for the podcast coming right up. It needs a slightly old school fitting mentality with a new school decade / data approach. I am throwing my hand and hat in the ring. I reckon I could get amongst this, because I reckon the player in him, here's my take on this, and I think this is why I've got so many questions and so much interest on it. I think he's going back out there, and I think when he steps into the arena, he's going old school mentality, and he knows who he was with his big belts and his Sergio Garcia ass whooping at the Ryder Cup. He's got it all. And I think that he brings a bit of that Darren Clarke mentality, that generation, to the field. But I reckon I could listen to all that and then get amongst it and be like, right, son, I get it. You're Billy Big Time back in 2005. But you know what? I was out on the tour every week as a young whippersnapper hunting around you, Billy Big Times. Now we got to start talking 7 woods. We got to start talking 4 woods, turn to 3 woods. We've got to get you a driver that bombs it a little bit further. We've got to get you a flat stick with some MOI. I wouldn't use that word because he'd be like, what are you talking about? And we've got to just tranquilo and work on this, looking at some data, and we've got to get you in the game, because I think that there's low-lying fruit here. And he'd look at me again and be like, you're an idiot. And I'd be like, not an idiot, though. Done this for your whole generation and helped them all. I got you. So that's my official application to help AK with his new sticks.
So here's a question for you then. So you spent years and years out on tour, and it was your job to get clubs in players' hands. He is a bit, I don't say he's a loose cannon, but he's going to say some things on socials that maybe some of the players would, which I like about him. So if you look at him, and then you look at someone like a Scotty, who's kind of your model professional, if you've got Scotty on the range and you've got AK on the range, and you're trying to get, let's say, a different putter in the bag, have you got 2 completely different approaches how you go up to them and try and instigate that conversation? Or is it, like, I'm going to do my thing to both of them?
It's a great question, and that is the job. I think everyone out there is like, oh, fitting. And we actually had a question come in about fitting. And everyone's like, oh, fitting. The job on tour is the personality, the moment in the year, knowing the schedule for elite players and where they're going to play. Like, is it Asia? Is it moving to the East Coast of America where everything's pure, the grass is pure? Is it grainy in the South? Is it going to play Europe? Then it's knowing the individual, approaching them at the right time, having the data from the previous weeks. Strokes gained was a big thing when I was obviously out every week. So you'd know strokes gained for a player. You'd know who'd changed what. So you could like almost approach this people that were vulnerable and were changing. And you like JJ Spawn would change a lot. Putters, he'd change a lot. And he was quite standoffish with me, to be honest with you. But he kept going there. He kept going to the well because he was changing a lot. And then guys who didn't drive it well, and where we go, okay, we're heading to the wind in the Middle East. Let's get amongst it. We've got the Open Championship. Because if you get a wedge in, then you've now got a conversation to have about a driver. And when I was doing it like every week, drivers are the thing. They're what you want, because everyone sees drivers and putters. And it's a marketing job at the end of the day. It's either drivers or putters. That's what people want. No one talks about the iron that Xander Schauffele used out of that Valhalla fairway bunker to lay it up. That shot was phenomenal. There's junk on the right, and he's laid it up. No one talks about it. I mean, that for me should have been like Adidas's shot of the year with those black and white shoes he had on. Because if he slips there, he's toast. Don't really talk about it, do they? But you don't know what's in the contracts. People here might be like, I don't really remember the shot. The little pitch he hit up the green to like 3-4 feet and then makes the putt, 5 feet probably. But it's like, I remember the wedge. I remember the Odyssey that he held that went in off the lip slightly, I think. But although, like, there's a different conversation. I mean, you got like the nicest bloke in the world in Xander. But if it's go time, you get out of the way. A bit like Jason Day, nicest bloke in the world. But if it's go time, you get out of the way. And that's a different approach to someone more technical like Colin Morikawa. Morikawa's got to be listen, I've been thinking about this. I know your game's here. You should try it, because he will experiment a lot. And I just think, well, we put a little lid on this. I think with AK, he is not even gone down. He hasn't gone down the road of experimenting, because when he was a baller, it was more player power and the equipment maybe wasn't quite where it is today. Like, the engineers have been pushing these rules and these RNA changes and USGA stuff since he was out on tour. So everything's at the limit. So fitting is massive. And it's like someone's written into our questions that we put out on the Dope Show Instagram this week, like Qi4D, can I get a regular fitting? Like, what is a regular fitting? Let's start there. I mean, you can't tell me if these tour players are doing X, Y, and Z and they're hitting off grass into the breeze with fantastic golf balls, and they change, most of them change at sea level when the time of the year is right for them, when the tournament location is right for them, when their stats say they've got to change. What the hell is a regular fitting? I mean, does that mean, can I hit 7 feet into a net with a camera type launch monitor and that's good for me? You tell me. If that's what a regular fitting is, knock yourself out. But it's not the fitting that I would do for a great player. I mean, you and I, again, hitting back into 2025, and I've been thinking a lot about this recently. It was probably one of the best sessions. We never talked about it at the time, but we were, and I've talked about it on the podcast with you, we were in a football, soccer pitch set up for kids. Like, there was probably 20 soccer pitches, and Chris was hitting these balls. It was into a heavy breeze. Yes, he was off a mat with a rubber tee, but he had his driver, and he was just nuking them down the range. And there were people down, and you were hitting it good that day, to be fair, mate.
Yeah.
There were people down there picking the balls up. And I was in like YouTube video mode, which is probably why I've thought about this since. But I was looking at it. You had 3 launch monitors. You had me stood there. You had your gamer, and you had the breeze the right way, and you had spotters. So when someone writes into me or us, can I do a Qi4D regular fitting? Well, if I'm going to be honest with you, we took that moment, could have been the greatest fitting moment of the year for me. And I fit a lot of players every year. And that could have been, that was as perfect situation if we were studying drivers and not launch monitors as I could have asked for. So if you're asking me what's the perfect fitting, then other than being able to turn around and ask you to hit the ball in the other wind direction with a golf course and a bunker that you've got to miss and out of bounds in a miss area, and putting in some actual physical places you cannot hit it. Therefore, we change the mindset from blast, blast, blast to focus, target, pre-shot routine. I would say that that was the perfect fitting environment. That'll be my take, that you got to recreate. So Qi4D, do I need a regular fitting? Well, what's a regular fitting? If you want to get it right, you need a fitting where you see ball flight at sea level with a premium ball and you can hit it in multiple wind directions. And you got someone who's not rushing you out the door to upcharge you for a shaft that you maybe don't need. And loft is key. And if you're hitting it like an axe murderer, you need someone who can put you in a state, which is kind of going back to what you said at the start of this podcast, where you understand you have a process to hit a good golf shot. Because if someone's going to have a putt for 15 feet to win the Open at St Andrews, and I think you make a valid point, and they've never done it before, that comes into another question we've had. How do they develop so that they can train for that moment? And we had a message in, mate, and I'm going to pivot to you for this one. Unless you want to add to the fitting stuff, by all means you can. But junior golf development, like, how do I get my junior to become a player And you obviously have to look at one day that player could have that 15-foot putt. How do you train for it? How do you get there? And obviously we hit on Tommy Fleetwood in the development, but how do you start at day one? If a kid's 12 years old and they're showing interest, do they have to be traveling around North America playing competitive golf? Do they have to be traveling around the UK playing competitive golf, or Middle East, or wherever they live? Do they have to be pushing themselves outside their comfort zone, or can they just batter the kids that they're playing against? Do they have to be playing with adults? Do they have to be playing in the rain, the wind, the sun? You know, there's a lot for you to unpack there, but I just think that both of us need to recognize that moment that we had there in California was probably the perfect fitting moment of 2025.
Yeah, I mean that's I guess why Full Swing set it up that way, because they wanted this environment where, you know, the people who are going to watch that content couldn't point the finger and go, oh well, that was, you know, in favor of this device, that was in favor of this device. It was literally, you know, the perfect scenario, because we went to, you know, a non-golf venue, just as they say, a sports field. But I think going back to the fitting, you were talking about a regular fitting, and you know, you're way more experienced in this than me, and you've done a really good job, I think, over the last 4, 5, 6 years of kind of shining a light on what happens in a good club fitting. But I think if you took the average golfer, I think they would be far more comfortable explaining what goes on in a really good golf lesson than they would explaining what goes on in a really good fitting. So when they go to their local pro and their local pro gives them one driver and they hit it into a net and he changes the shaft and they hit 5 more shots and he says, right, that's going to cost you 700 quid because we're upgrading the shaft. They don't really know that that's not the best service. They just know that's what they've been dealt. And so I think with fitting, it's hard because it's, you know, people don't know what a good fitting looks like. So they don't really know when they've had the opposite experience. And I think, you know, the more people that come out like you who do it for a living with the best players. But then I guess the flip side of that is, you know, if you just described what your ideal fitting scenario was, you're not going to get that in Birmingham in England. You know, you have to do the best, you know, the second best option, which is like a driving range, and the balls.
But mate, and again, it's funny actually. Nice little segue, Bubsy lad. I don't know if you were thinking about that. I didn't even put this in our list of topics today. And let's stick on the fitting, but just for people realizing that we read these questions that come in, someone wanted Belfry stories, more Belfry love. And you say you're not going to get a great fitting experience in Birmingham, England. I would maybe beg to differ. That was the best of its time, and I think it still stands there. The only things I would say that are poor about that fitting experience, it's freezing cold in the winter, so the golf balls don't go anywhere. It's perhaps too controlled because you hit indoors, which I like, but you need to be able to go to a golf course. I mean, you could go to a golf course. It would have cost you a pretty penny back in the day to walk out and go and hit a few balls on the Brab, but whatever. And it is uphill a little bit. So, you know, there's a few things that, and I don't remember the prevailing wind being into off the right. I don't remember it. I don't remember what it was down on it.
I don't know, but I do know that the sun rose right at the back of the range. So if you were fitting in the morning and the sun was out, you could go 3 sessions and not see a ball flick. So it was
like hitting it into the flipping Japanese armada coming at you.
Yeah. So the thing with that as well, which I remember from when I was there, I don't know what you're saying, we had like 5 manufacturers at the time. You know, your kind of top ones, your TaylorMade, your Titleist, your Ping, your Callaways, and we kind of sold this fitting center as we've got all these brands, and it ended up being, certainly when I was fitting there, that you'd want to lead the customer, and go, right, well, I think this, you know, TaylorMade product is good for you, and they'd be like, yeah, I get that, but can I try the Callaway? Can I try the Titleist? And it ended up just being like a demo session where they were just trying all the drivers. And I think because they were all there, they wanted that peace of mind that I've tried every product. And that was the only thing that frustrated me, is that, you know, back then I was a custom fitter. You kind of knew where they were going to end up. And you just thought, you know, I can get you in the right product within half hour here, but you want to try all these products. And it ended up just being like a demo session.
Mm. Yeah, an interesting one. I heard a freaking nightmare story of someone having a fit-in this weekend of someone who I know. And I was hearing the story third hand or whatever, second hand. And they were like, it was a junior, good player. I got he was 16 to 8 to 20-year-old. His dad was with him, always tricky. But look, part of a coach's job at the end of the day, deal with the parents. You have to. Any good coach has to. And I get it as a father now, you want the best for your children. So I'm not knocking that. And the coach went through this fitting, and he's not a bad coach, to be fair, quite good. And he got this kid into a driver, and he recommended something that needed to happen. And the dad literally turned around to the watcher, the guy watching on, and was like, "Yeah, but we're going to do this, this, and this." And the guy's like, "He's just told you what you got to do."
Yeah.
I don't get it. Like, if you've come here not to seek out the advice, why'd you come here? Which is sadly in commercial fitting, where you've then got to put a price tag on it for the information. Because at the end of the day, the fitter, and you and I have talked about this a lot. Obviously, I love the coaching as well. And, secretly, a lot of these questions I'm asking you are for my own golf, because I still get out there and give it a whack. But at the end of the day, I think a fitter's time, a good one, the best, comes with a price. You want to see the best coach, it comes with a price. And that process is not going to be hit a Callaway, hit a Titleist, hit a Ping, hit a TaylorMade, hit a Cobra, hit a whoever else you like. And let's, that works. No, mate. Yeah. A decent fitter will make any of them work for you. Yeah, but what do you want?
I think that was my take on it. Back when we started, it was glued heads. And so, you might be in a certain product and you couldn't get it to do the right thing. And you had to say, look, I don't think we can get it right in this product. But, now when you got this kind of move away, you got the loss sleeve, you've got every shaft available to you, you got different head designs, you can get into any product, can't you? But I mean, I got fitted here at Full Swing with the new TaylorMade. And that was a really interesting fitting, because that was a bit different, a bit unique, because they spoke a little bit about club shaft and release rate and rate of closure, which I've not really tapped into before. And that was a real kind of eye-opener for me, because I'm in something now which I've never even considered being in terms of.
So you hit that in a Full Swing sim with a Full Swing kit?
It was the sim. In the Full Swing.
Just the sim? With a kit behind?
Yeah.
Okay, that's crucial. So you had the kit behind, and you hit on there, you can get into any club. I think certain shapes and heads suit different people, and I think every year on tour there's a combination of driver that will work for the majority. And back in the days of driver wars, which was so fun on tour, you had to find that combination for everyone, which is, I think, this whole release rate, having seen how so much more these last 3 years, how these companies fit commercially, I think the release rate of the shaft thing, it's going to expedite the fitting process like you wouldn't believe. And obviously, look, we're all not naive enough to not think this. It's an attempt to make fitting become more computer generated and AI, and maybe take some of the experience and the human touch out of it. So which one? And my understanding is there's 3 golf shafts, 3 different releases. They'll put you through a process, and then they'll put you into one of these 3 releases, which they tried to do before back in 2004 with the React shaft. They, funnily enough, renamed this thing Reacts. I'm not saying I'm anti this, by the way. I'm just saying that I think these 3 golf shafts cover many golf shafts. And you just need to ensure that one of those 3 is the best, most quality shaft for you. So release rate, were you the mid, the more released one, or were you the firmer one?
I can't remember, but that was my.
Chances are you were mid, by the way, because so many, the biggest bell curve is the mid.
Yeah. So the way it happened, and this is always for me the powerful experience. We came down here Full Swing, we TaylorMade. We go into
what shaft were you playing, by the way?
I was playing a. How about that? I don't even know, mate.
What manufacturer?
It was a Mitsubishi.
Okay. And your miss is the old Brandon Block still, or the snapper, right?
Yeah. Yeah, both. Yeah, heel contacts, and then block it right. Normally it's overshaping it. So we go into this conference room, they talk us through the new product, and then they go through this kind of fitting of the shaft process, which is quite new this year. They're talking about rate of closure when you release it, and what they're saying is that when they can measure the rate of closure, they input that into the app they've got on their tablets, and that throws up a family of shafts that you would be best suited to. So I'm like, yeah, okay, great, I love that. Understand it, get what you're trying to do. Because they were saying to us that previously they feel like shafts had been spoken about in the vertical, kind of launch and spin, whereas they're saying we're looking at shafts in the kind of horizontal, it can affect kind of direction as well. So I'm like, yeah, get that. So we go into the bay. I loosen up, hit some with my Qi35, hit it pretty good, pretty standard for me. A few blocks, a few hooks, and a few heel strikes. So then they kind of look at the rate of closure, they take some video, they go, right, I can't remember what it was. I'm going to have to get that. And they're right, put it in, and it throws up 3 shafts. 3 shafts with really soft tips. So one's, I'm in a Velical red.
Yeah, Fuji red would be one for sure.
Yeah, so it's a really soft tip. And the guy's like, oh, because you've never been anything like that before. And I was like, no, I've never played anything like that. He's like, okay, well, we'll try it. So he puts it in the new Qi4D. And that was it. Like, it was crazy because I hit the center way more often. My launch, in terms of spin and stuff, we fiddled around with that with the loft, but the left and right miss was so much tighter. And it was really.
So you're in that now.
I'm in the Velical red. And the tip.
You had it on a golf course yet?
I've been on the golf course, yeah. It was like -2 and frosty everywhere, but yeah, hit it good. So I need to test it more, but it was just really surprising because I found that I didn't hit the heel as much. I did feel like my start lines are a bit tighter. I'm in a 70 gram, which is, I like the feel of that. So it's just interesting that,
Do you know what the swing weight is?
No.
Do you know what is the length standard?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Just be interesting to see it over a period of weeks, just knowing that how much ball speed you have. And then like you've done the first part, correct? But I'd love to see you on a golf course, then having to hit a shot. Like there's a guy at TaylorMade, good player. I played once with him last year, actually. And he would hit this tee shot that was teed this high, 7 left, face open, down tight holes. I mean, how do you fit for that with this system? Yeah. You know what I mean? Look, everything's got holes. It's great. It's a good style point, and I think the point is for the masses, it gets you into a cracking spot. Totally. But I don't know, your speed. Like Adam Scott plays that shaft quite a bit, and so a lot of tour players do. But it's usually lads that launch it a hair lower than you, maybe aren't as shallow as you. But yeah, it'll be interesting to see how that works out. When I went through that process, kudos to the system, it listed 3 shafts, and they're the 3 shafts I've been playing the last 15 years. Really? I thought that was pretty cool. I don't change golf shafts very much. And it was like, wow, that's impressive. So there's something to it. I don't know why it had those 3 brands, because there's a lot more to it, but it was literally the 3 brands that. But I fell into the standard closure rate, standard delivery, blah, 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 which is, I think most people do. But it's cool. It's great to see where it's going. It's great to see where the tech going. It's great to see the start. I think the thing about that driver that I like the most is they've evolved the curvature on the face even more, which has to have an impact on left and right and vertical. But I think we're answering Qi4D regular fitting. I'd say you've kind of had a regular fitting there. I think the first part's okay. For me, I've got to get you out on the golf course, and I've got to see ball flight, and I have to have more of a chat. And if I know that you're a teaching pro that doesn't play, I'm pulling the trigger perhaps on that driver because I think it'll give you a bit more yardage. But realistically, when you do play, you're going to play 65 to 6,700 yard golf courses with friends or lessons. Yeah. And I'd like to see you hit it straight, because I think that gaining 3 to 5 to 10 yards with something like that is not beneficial for you, because you're not playing. You can absolutely play 71 to 7,400 yard back tee golf courses. Then we'd have to look at it, but you're just not doing that. And you got kids, you don't play very much. These are all conversations. You demonstrate a little bit, and it's like, okay, what's the gain by going left field, like going left field with a player of your caliber, which again would be an AK conversation. You go left field with someone like Anthony Kim, you can't do it. There has to be a conversation about their preferences, what they like. They're masters of the game. As you might not want to hear this, but you're a master of the game. Without doubt. You're in the top 2% ever to played it that's alive on this earth right now. You're not on tour, but you freaking can hit a golf ball really well. And I think that we don't realize that as plus handicaps or good players. You don't realize that you're actually in the top people on the earth walking around playing the game.
It doesn't feel like it sometimes, does it? We're on the course.
100%. But you are. You know what I mean? And I think that we've all got to realize that.
Absolutely.
So that really brings us to other news that we were wanting to talk about. And I think, we can.
Can I just jump in quick before you move on?
Absolutely.
You mentioned the juniors. And
He never answered that.
No, we went on a different tangent, did it?
We did.
I just want to touch on, this was actually a podcast that I was listening to many, many years ago. And it was someone who, I can't remember who it was, I can't remember whose podcast it was, but it was someone who worked at IMG. And they were talking about Michelle Wie. And if you look at Michelle Wie's career, great. She played really well. She did good. I think she won majors. She won tournaments. Great player. But when you look at...
Protege, by the way. Baller from the age of 14.
And that's what this podcast was touching on. When you look at what she was doing and how good she was as a junior going through the professional ranks, she was incredible. So she was kind of tipped to be, an all-star, just winning everything. And she never
was
quite
unreal.
did that. She never quite got to the level that people thought she would have. And this whole podcast was basically saying that from quite a young age, she was pushed up through the ranks. And so she was always really good. She was always the best female golfer, but she actually didn't win, because when she got really good, she was pushed up to the next level, pushed up to the next level, pushed up to the next level. And this podcast was basically saying, this person was saying, if he could have gone back and advised her, it would have been more to play at the level she was at for longer and win before you go up. Because he was saying that it doesn't matter whether you're playing in an under-14s tournament or it's your first professional event or it's a major, there's a skill to winning. There's a skill to getting it over the line. And you might be the best golfer in terms of being able to hit the golf ball a certain way, but you need to have that history of learning how to win. So, we can dive a little bit into what I'm doing with my boys who are 7 and they're playing golf and how little technique I'm doing with them. But I think as they start to get through and you start to potentially see that your son or daughter is really good, you've got to be cautious to try and push them up into the next level too quick. You've got to let them breathe at that level, let them win, let them experience winning, then move them up. When they can win at that level, move them up, let them win at that level, move them up. Going back to what we were talking about, 15, 20 minutes ago, that's what many of the good golfers do. They win at one level, they go up, they win at that level, they go up, they win at that level, because winning is a skill and you need to learn how to win.
Yeah, I think it's tough it's really where you label as well these people. I mean, so I've just typed in here a few things just to get an eye on, like, okay, what's the barometer? So she obviously played at Stanford, which is, I mean, if your kid's playing at Stanford, it's phenomenal. She won it, and this is just Google, so 7.28 million official LPGA money. She won one major, so they say. And then I was like, okay, well, how is that against modern day? So Charlie Hall, career earnings, again, Google, exceeding 11.5 million. But that's today. She's not won. She's won twice on the LPGA, but she hasn't won a major. So I was like, okay, well, that's today. Let's go to greatest of all time, ladies golfer, maybe the same generation as we. What have we got here? And it's obviously Annika, and she's 22.6 million on course earnings. So I don't know if you've got. By the way, I think what you said is spot on. Not that my opinion matters on it, but I think what you're saying about winning at each level is spot on. I think winning's important. I think you go to these mini tour events, you got to win if that's what you want to do. You're a pro and you get into play your club championship, or you're aspiring to be a great. But you got to win your club championship, and then you got to win it by 5 or 6. These guys that play in the club championship have got jobs. They're just regular dudes who play in the club championship. You got to win that thing by 5 or 6 if you're playing full-time golf. And, I think when I was a better player as a kid, you would joke that, you win the club championship, fair, cool, great. Mate, if you put Shane Lowry in that thing, he'd win it by 10.
Oh, yeah.
There's a journey you've got to learn, but even just being a raw golfer, if you're playing against other amateurs, mastering playing tour golf is different. We're having this conversation again at the weekend. You take a journeyman that you've never heard of. Now, I've heard of these guys. You've heard of these guys. But like Dean Robertson back in the day on the European Tour, he won Rookie of the Year in the early 2000s, I think. I played golf with him in Qatar in a qualifier. And it was like clinical. And a lot of people never heard of him. You go to my buddy Dean Wilson, same thing. You go to the Ryan Palmer, made fortunes on a PGA Tour. And it's the same thing. These boys just, Brant Snedeker, maybe a slightly bigger name, Sean McKeel, all these guys, you could go on and on and on. The level of them versus the best amateur is massive. And they're just great at their job. But I think if you went back and you looked at Michelle Weith's father and said to him at the end of it, your daughter's going to make $7.5 million out of ladies golf in the early 2000s. She's going to win one major and she's going to become a figurehead for the game and go to Stanford. How do you feel? Are you taking that? You win a major, for me, you're taking it. I think we get a little jaded by, Tiger's won 15 of the things. Well, 14 of the things or whatever he's on now. He's 15, isn't he? Tiger Woods majors, that's an important fact. It's 15 majors. It's got to be. But you go for all these things and it's like that 15. So you go for all these things and it's like, is that the barometer now? We got to win 15 majors. It's your generational talent, mate. One.
Yeah, I just think with her, she was so far ahead of the curve all the way through her junior golf, even as she started to get into professional ranks. And then if you were to sort of plot that, she probably fell below the curve that they had predicted for her. That's all I'm saying. And just, I think, this expert was kind of saying when he looks back, she probably wasn't handled that well from 15, 16 through till 2021. She was kind of pushed into too many things. I mean, she played in a PGA Tour event, didn't she, when she was age? I mean, I'm not sure what they were trying to gain there. Like, what's the point in that? I don't really.
She was Hawaii local, wasn't she? That's why, and they got her in that one in Sony. Yeah. But it's interesting you say it though, and I think this is another good point just to help on this junior golf development thing and all of our golf development thing, and maybe my fitting journey I'm going to have with Anthony Kim. It's too far at some point. Do you not think the teaching? Like, look at the way she was at with a golf swing at the end. It was overcoached.
Yeah, I think she went down a route. Yeah, she had some periods of her career where her swing was just technically not good, and obviously everyone's got their different opinions on that. But the stats and the performances would back up the fact that she wasn't swinging it good. So whether that was misadvised by the people around her, whether that was falling into the wrong coaching hands, but yeah, I mean, when she came out, she had a phenomenal golf swing, and there was times in her career where you look at that swing and you're like, that doesn't look particularly healthy for your physical body, and it doesn't look like he was going to get the results. I mean, she was certainly with the driver, she had a pretty unique move when you look at it from the face on. So yeah, maybe she got some poor advice from different people on the way, and she might look back at her career and think that she maybe took some wrong turns. But I just think it's an interesting story because she was the Tiger Woods of the female game when she was young, and it didn't quite work out that way for her.
Yeah, Casey Nakama was her first coach before she went to Ledbetter. So, I mean, that's when she was balling out. And it says here his coaching philosophy. I've never heard of our boy Casey, but his coaching philosophy was like feel. Teaching style, he focused on feel, helping her shape shots and learn to play around the green, developing her unique style. Nakama trained her multiple times a week. Yeah, nurturing her skills as she developed from a talented kid into a golfing phenomenon.
Yeah. I mean, that when you read that, I don't know that guy. I've not seen him coach, but you just think that approach is never going to harm a phenomenal talent like that, is it? Tapping into fields, teaching how to play shots, working on a short game. I mean, that's just there's never a time when that's not going to be helpful. Whereas you start going down, I don't know, systems and methods and coaching philosophies, and I just think it can be a mismatch between the student and the coach. And, at that level, when you get someone who's that talented, you almost, for a coach, it's almost what you don't say, which is more important than what you do say. So
I think it's very difficult once you go too far. Personally, I think I've experienced that. Once you go too far, it's difficult because then you got to manage it. And I think what it always boils back to is you've got your own sort of fingerprint as to what your errors are, and you need your own fixes to fix those errors. So back on that junior golf development thing, this junior is a good player. He's going to end up in a big junior tournament that might be multiple days at some point in time, and he starts hitting it left. What is that junior's fix to stop hitting it left? Now, launch monitors have come on so much, and these kids have become so reliable on them that it's a quicker fix now, because if you don't know, you can just bang that on and go, as long as you understand where my face is left. But now all of a sudden you're at a tournament and you're down the rabbit hole with a launch monitor. You got to know how to manage it at the end of the day.
When I was coaching a lot more, that was one of I would use that example a lot with football teams. I would say, you look at the best football teams. So let's pick whoever you want to say, Real Madrid.
I think Manchester United is going to be a good one with where you're going. I mean, they're lost, aren't they?
I'll use them. This is a good example. But you think the best football team, so we'll pick Real Madrid. So you think about them in their pomp, and you think any situation, let's say they are, 1 goal up, 5 minutes to play, the other team get a corner. Do all those players know what their job is and how to navigate that situation? 100%. And I would say that to a golfer. Okay, you are in a tournament, it's the third round, and you start overshaping it with too much curve to the left. Do you know how to deal with that situation? And if you don't know the answer to that, then you've got to find the answer. And that might be a quick fix. It might be just nudge the ball forward, which is going to move the path to the left, job done. And that's not the long-term fix, but that gets you round. So I do think that when you're looking at playing to potential, there's no way that I'm going to go on the golf course and start over fading driver. That's just not going to be in my DNA. But I know that I will go on the golf course and I will push it. I will start to overhook it. And like you were saying, you need to know what the sort of trends are and the patterns in your game. And you need to know that if I'm mid-round and they are starting to happen, what can I do? Yeah, of course, you can either play with it, you can just change your targets, or you can, for me, I always know that nudging ball forward really helps. There's, you need to have these little kind of tricks and tips that you can do, which are specific to you. And that's why I think when you work with a golf coach over a really long period of time, you build those relationships, you build that knowledge. And I think good golfers have that. They have the ability to not swing it at their best and still get a fair amount of control of the golf ball. The amount of golfers I've coached who are like, I'm hooking it, I'm slicing it, I don't know what to do. I'm like, well, you need something to do. There's no way I would go to a golf course and hook it for 18 holes. I'm going to manage it a little bit.
It goes back to your boy Casey with Michelle Wee. If you've got the tools in the short game to fix it, then you can get through. How do you ensure that players get off to a good start? That was another question we had coming in from Instagram. So, you're talking here about overshaping, but I guess this is a good one to get our final question in. How do you ensure a good start is those first 5 holes, the shape isn't ridiculous and they're there, they've already fixed it?
Well, I think the first thing I would say before we get the first few holes is I would say if I'm coaching a really good player, and I've used my game as an example, I do have my patterns that I know. So if I am overshaping the ball, so too much right to left, I've got a couple of things that I can do within my golf swing that will kind of negate that a little bit. So I'm going to eliminate it, but it's going to take that big left miss out. But what I don't want to do is stand on the first tee, overshape it, miss fairway left, and then on the next tee change something. I don't want to react to a shot. I want to react to patterns. So if the first 3 tee shots overshape to the left, I'm like, okay, maybe that's my pattern today. So now I'll make a decision of, do I change my targets more to the right, allow that shape, or do I do the 1 or 2 things that I know I can do, which for me is nudge the ball forward, maybe tee it a little lower. But you don't want to be reacting far too quickly. The last thing you want to do as an amateur is start on the first, and by the third hole, you've made 4 changes because the first one went left, the second one went right, then you fatted it, and you're all in the middle now. So I would almost be saying, I love that, we were told this as a kid, but, you do that idea of kind of like, look at the scorecard and you group it into kind of holes of 3. So I would almost be saying the first thing I would do is not make any conscious changes until I've played 3 holes. Just play those 3, then you reflect and go, okay, what was my pattern? Was that what I expect to see? If it is, carry on. If it was a little bit different to what you want to see, okay, is there anything I can do that's quick? Is there anything I will know that from my lessons or my previous practice? Then you might start to make some subtle changes. But the last thing I would be doing is like half of the front 9 of change your grip and your ball position, your alignment and your feels and your takeaway. And like that is just not the way to do it. So I just think, if you want to start well, you need to give yourself 3 holes, maybe reflect after that. And look, just basic stuff like just do the right things in warm-up. Make sure you are going through the bag. Make sure you are fully loosened up before you head to the first tee. Make sure you're not getting to the first tee 30 seconds before you tee off. Making sure you've got tees in your pocket, you've got your balls marked up. Make sure you've got your glove on. Just you're trying to take stress out. The last thing you want to do is walk into the first tee, faffing around for your glove, getting your ball out, and not in the right mindset.
Yeah, all good stuff. Well, mate, there's one subject we didn't get to, but it feels wrong to bring it up now because it's such a big, and I think it's a developing story, and I don't think we should hit it, but it's PGA Tour and it's Brooks Koepka and this possible return, and it's like, that feels like a big subject. And it's got time to play out.
Look, I think if you're the PGA Tour, you probably want him back. I just think the players are going to want some sort of compensation. I don't know how that's going to work out, but I don't know how much he got from Liv, but it was pretty hefty amount. So I think those players would be like, look, I don't mind having him back. He's probably a decent name for the tour, but I don't know how they navigate that compensation, whether that's to the players, whether that's the tour, whether that's something, I don't know. Maybe they say that he can't win any money for the first 2 years.
Saying here that Brooks, and again, Google, but Brooks Koepka's live contract signed in 22 was reportedly worth over 100 million for a multi-year deal.
There you go.
5-year deal expiring in 2026, though exact figures remain undisclosed. He earned significant bonuses, including an estimated 50 million signing in 2022, dwarfing his tournament winnings initially, though he later won the 23 PGA Championship while an active live player.
I said I don't think the tour or the players will be happy with someone taking 100 million to go to another tour for 4 years, then just coming back and then banking that 100 million. There's going to be, the tour can't be seen to just allow that to happen, because there's other players, they're going to go, well, I'll do the same. I'll go to live for 5 million, then come back after 2 years. So they're going to have to set a precedent here, because he's the first player that's potentially going to return. We don't know whether he will yet, but he's the first one that's kind of debunked from live, and he's potentially looking to get back in the PGA Tour. So I think they've got to tread carefully, but they need to really think about how they handle this situation, because they've got to keep the players happy. They've got to keep the onlookers happy, sponsors happy. It's a tough one to navigate, isn't it?
What a Rahm wasn't happy with it, was he? He was the one who sort of stepped up and said, listen, you can't be, what are we doing here? I mean, where's the headline on this? I have an idea, said John Rahm, 2-time major. I don't know how it works. Does he get reinstated right away? I don't know. So he was pretty chill about it. Yeah. He'll probably play a minimum, I would say. Why not? The events he likes, the big ones. If he can then make himself into elevated tournaments, blah, 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 he'd play those. He just answered it very blandly.
The tour will want him back, but
100%.
It's just how they do it. Because if they get this wrong, it could be not a good look for them, and they could piss some of the players off. And I think they've got to handle this right. Look, I think end of the day, fast forward 6 months, he'll be on the PGA Tour. I think it's just how it happens.
Exactly.
Whether he's going through a Q school or what, they will want him back because he's a big name. We're talking about him on this podcast. He's a big name in golf. He's a fairly recent major champion. He's got 4 majors. 4 majors, I think. So look, they're going to want him. Yeah, they're going to want him, but it's just how they. I think they can't just simply open arms and pull him back in.
Yeah, I think you're talking about a player that I know that it's actually it's 5 majors.
Oh, is he?
He's won the PGA Championship 3 times, US Open twice.
So there's another player, isn't there? I mean, you got a few of them. You got someone like a Spieth, who at some point looked like he was going to bag double figures. Then you got like Brooks, who looked like he was going to run off and get double figures. So hard to stay at that level, isn't it, throughout your career?
Everyone's going to want him, though. I think you're right on that, and I think everyone is going to want him, and I think maybe those things are why you demand 100 million on your contract to sign with Liv. I get it. Young family, commitments to play less golf, but yeah, this is going to be, I think Rory's going to have a big piece to say. I think Rory's going to want him back, to be honest. And then it's like, what happens with John? Because John Rahm is just a baller. And then what happens with Bryson? And then is this the end of Liv? Maybe.
Could be.
To be continued, Bobsy. To be continued.
Yes. We are.
These are nice problems for people to have.
They are. And we're going to do some podcasts in person next week, aren't we?
We are. We never touched on that. We're going to be at the PGA Show next week. I mean, you've been before. I've been before. I've only been in recent years, and it actually has a funny reputation in the industry, the PGA Show. But I quite like it. I think it's quite good fun. You get to see a lot of mad ideas from people. Yeah. I remember I left last year wishing that all these people would come together and just make one product because it would be kick-ass. But of course, everyone's just too interested in making money, which is a shame. But like, it was a big AI kind of vibe last year, and Sportsbox were obviously chatting about that and what they were doing. And then you got all the various launch monitor companies and what they're doing, and the golf companies. And I'm just like, God damn, if everyone came together, this would you'd just be immense. But it's not the way it works.
We'll save it because we're coming up to an hour now. But I have fairly recently started working with a guy called Briscoe, who's got a coaching app, which is AI. And mate, it is, I can't do it justice in words how good this thing is. And when you look at it up against something like Sportsbox, this thing is like super powerful in what it can do, and yet the user experience and the way it works is like so simple, and he's done a phenomenal job. So we maybe do a podcast on that, because I think everyone listening to this should go and download it and give it a go. It's absolutely incredible.
I like it. You heard it here first. What's the name of that?
It's called Swing Coach. I'll stick a link in the description. Well, I will. Someone will. But we'll talk about it on the podcast, because it is phenomenal. I've been using it today. It blows my mind how good it is. It really, really is.
Is it so good that I need to take myself down another rabbit hole?
But this would get you out the rabbit hole.
Oh, I love the rabbit hole. I live in the rabbit hole.
I'll show you next week. I'll show you next week. I'll show you it works. You'll be blown away. You'll be sold.
There you go. Looks like I've got some bad golf coming up. All right, folks. Listen, we'll probably put another question out, I think, on the Dope Show Instagram. That was successful. We got a few questions in. We'll do the same. We've got, obviously, Brooks to be continued. We've got Bubsy and his AI app to be continued. We've got PGA Show to be continued. 2026 is coming at us hard. We're definitely not doing an Anthony Kim and going MIA, which I'll explain that to you in more detail as I see you. But some jouster who follows me was like, you've been AIA. Trotty's not been AIA, everybody. Don't you worry about that. I've been working in the shadows. That's not MIA. Exactly. That ain't MIA. But it's all good. We've chalked it down. I'll keep posting it on my Instagram. It's going to be my mantra for 2026. And when I open this thing I'm working on, then it can be go screw yourself with your MIA. I'm doing an Anthony Kim, baby. Anyway, you heard it here. Dope Stroke Podcast. Catch it coming up. See you soon.